Hey everyone, welcome to the Urban Outcast. I'm your host, the Outcast, Mark Urban. So in light of the recent flooding, we've got a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and I have one with me today who has some information that she'd like to share, and I think that it's important that we kind of continue this discussion, especially in light of the fact that in the last 2 years, we've had major flooding, and nothing seems to be, being done about it. So today I have with me the chair of the Whatcom County Republican Party, Misty Flowers. Misty, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. How you doing?
Doing great.
Good. Lots of opinions on this, and I'm a guy who likes to stir them up and put them out there so we can have debate. So, one of the biggest things, obviously, is the fact that here it's only been 2 years, and it's 2 or 3. No, wait, has it been 2 or is it 4 now?
I believe it's 2021 was the first one. So, yeah, it's been 4, but still.
It's 4, right, okay.
They called it a 100-year flood.
Well,
it's
but what does
definitely
that
not
mean?
been 100 years.
Right. Well, but and I think that's the problem is, to me, a 100-year flood could last for 10 years, right? Just because does that mean it's 100-year to the day and the minute? I don't think so. I think it's a period of time. That's my opinion. But only within 4 years. And I remember the last one, people saying it's going to happen again, unless they maintain the river, whatever terminology you want to use. I've been informed that dredging is a no-no to say. It's river sediment management or something like that. But anyway, I don't care. You can call it whatever you want. We got to do something about it. So what are you hearing? What are you hearing from the people?
Well, going back to what you're talking about with the dreaded D word, it's become a dirty word here in Whatcom County. But dredging is actually a normal process for maintaining rivers. And rivers across the United States regularly dredge to make sure that they're not flooding their communities. It is completely normal. But here in Whatcom County, we've turned it into a dirty word, and we've turned any sort of river management into taboo to even talk about, let alone actually taking action on. And I think people are really tired of being flooded.
So real quick, let's park there for a second. What is the difference between, I know what I've been told, but your opinion, what's the difference between dredging and sediment removal? Or, is there a difference or?
It's PC. It's more politically palatable, I guess.
Well, I was told one of them has to do with the machinery and everything actually being in the river, which I guess for the environmentalists is a no-no because it's, you can have, I guess, leakage from the equipment, whether it's hydraulics or diesel or whatever, and you're disturbing the fish habitat, as opposed to, which is dredging, I guess, which is opposed to sediment removal, which is done from the banks, the river banks. That's what I was told. Either way, you're entering the river at some point, So that's what I was told. But at the end of the day, something's got to be done. And why is it that people are so, or that there's been so much resistance, at least politically?
Well, there's a couple different opinions on that. I can give you mine. So I personally think that the reason why we have created this huge taboo around dredging the river or sediment removal of the river to keep it flowing properly, it's because, in my opinion, there's a bigger project going on here behind the scenes that the public is not being informed about, nor are they able to participate in the conversation to decide whether that project is meant to roll forward by the will of the people or by these mega corporations that have money invested in this area to bring in what is called the Cascadia Innovation Corridor. So I personally think that's why we've been shutting down the river for so long. It is a lot easier to get people to move out of their land that they have for generations maintained if you flood them out over and over and have them overwhelmed to the point where they're going to sell their land pennies on the dollar. It's a lot cheaper for investors on this project to purchase these areas than it is if you have to pay people the proper value of their land and have them involved in the conversation on this bigger project, which some people would absolutely be opposed to.
That is interesting. That is the first time I've heard that take. So what does it mean? There's industrial, I think you said, investment in this, or you mean like corporations, are kind of using this to their advantage to.
I absolutely believe that not only are corporations doing it, but people within our local government are doing it. They are making money off of the suffering of people in our community from their houses being flooded.
So then what's the benefit? Let's walk through this. There's corporations that have an invested interest in that. Let the sediment build up, let the river flood, people move, and then that land now is available for development.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Because that's a total different argument than the tribal issue and, the state environmental issue stuff.
I think that the environmental issues have been sold to the tribes to encourage the tribes to support a lack of movement on the river, a lack of making sure that the river is flowing properly. I think they're being hosed just as much as anybody else in this county.
That's interesting. I never thought of it. So what you're saying is there's a I hate to use the word, sort of a conspiratorial investment involved in this happening, where there's corporations involved that are kind of strong arming the situation. With that, I don't know if I'm wording that properly. Interesting. Are you at liberty to mention or name like these corporations? Like who? What kind of people are involved in this? Who's doing this?
Let me take it back just a little bit into our recent history to give you a perspective on why I believe this. So in 2016, a project rolled out called the Cascadia Innovation Corridor, and major entities, including Microsoft, including Bill Gates, you might know him or know of him.
Heard of him.
Yeah, so he invested millions of dollars into this project called the Cascadia Innovation Corridor. And at the time, there was a non-binding agreement of the Oregon, Washington, and BC leadership. So the Oregon and Washington governors made an agreement with the premier of BC that they were going to start this project and create a mega region here on the West Coast that would support a high-speed rail system. It would change the boundaries of the Canada border. And this project started in 2016, but it's been rolling out ever since. It's very easy to find online, Cascadia Innovation Corridor. And in 2021 or 2022, they actually had the Cascadia Corridor Summit out at Semiahmoo. So several of us heard about it here in the public, and I was running a group at the time, which has kind of gotten a lot smaller now, but Be Brave Washington. Our group had launched to really involve the local public in matters of public interest around our local government and encouraging people to get more involved. So at that time, it was around the COVID restrictions and things like that, but this project, Cascadia Corridor, came to our attention. So 3 of us went to the Cascadia Corridor Summit out at Semiahmoo. We were the only people there that were from the public. Everybody else that was there were from these major corporations. It cost us almost double for the tickets. I think it was $250 for each of us. It was only $100, I think, for anybody that was working for these corporations. So we were the only 3 people from the public. We were very curious. We also stood out like a sore thumb because we're there writing notes when everybody else just looked a little tone deaf. But the major companies that are involved, Microsoft being one of them, but there's also these major infrastructure corporations. And of course, Bill Gates was involved. There were speakers from many different areas, including technology, using AI to really build out this, um, in a way, a super region that influences and builds out technology more. I personally think that also includes tracking of people more, but creating a hub that would really enliven this area. The problem is that the people in these areas that have lived here their whole lives, they don't even know about it. So, for example, our executive, Sat Paul Sadhu, he was at this summit at Semiahmoo, and he was praised for his leadership on this project. Meanwhile, you will not ever hear him talk about the Cascadia Corridor. Why? Well, if you look at the map for the Cascadia Corridor's high-speed rail system, it goes up and down the West Coast through those areas I described, but it also has these little dog legs that go off, and one of those areas happens to be Sumas. And when you look at the rail system and then you look at the flooding and then you think about the fact that people that have been flooded end up through FEMA and these different buyout programs, they get pennies on the dollar for their land. They're not getting the proper value of it. They're getting the value of your land is going to flood.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not rebuildable, right? So it's valued at a lot less than it would be if your house was stable,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So when we started tracking this project, we were appalled, horrified, and terrified that not only did you see these major corporations involved and that there was clearly a clear plan to build this big project out and that the public was being completely left in the dark about it, but the military was also involved in these conversations. And one of the things that they talked about at the summit was that they were going to use fires and floods to move people out of the areas that they're working on building these out. And then they touted that they'd been, working on this or kind of implementing these strategies on these smaller islands across the world, not just in the United States, but in different areas where they could see the benefit of moving people off their land for resources, for innovation, whatever it is.
So when they said, sorry to interrupt, when they said they're going to use fires and floods, how did you take that? Do you mean that they're going to, hey, well, it's going to happen, so let's use it, or they're going to cause it to happen, or kind of both? What do you think?
I think that's a great question. I think that's a really great question because we've seen different areas that are questionable how fires started or how the fires were managed through FEMA. Let's call out Maui for a minute. But there's other areas. So there's definitely a potential.
California, Maui,
yeah. So I was born and raised in California. And one of the bigger fires that went through California in the last several years was the Carr Fire. My mom's house almost burnt down in that. But when you see even where that fire tracked and how they say it started, it was very peculiar. And a lot of natives were burned off their land, were never allowed back, and were never even paid anything for it. That's also an area of this high-speed rail system. So maybe it's coincidence that the fires happen to start there and they happen to be able to take the land over for federal reasons or for state reasons. Or maybe there's more of an incentive to potentially start them. I don't know, but it's worth asking the question because it is very peculiar that where these fires are, where these floods are, they happen to be working really well in line with this project that seems to be rolling out behind closed doors and without the public's knowledge or consent.
Interesting. I have so many branch off questions that I'm trying to pick and choose where I want to go because I get into the whole, used to be global warming. Now it's climate change. And if they're going to use fires and floods, well, that ties right into, it's climate change.
That's exactly what they pitched it on at the summit was with all this climate change happening.
Wink, wink.
Exactly.
Wow.
The truth hurts sometimes.
I did not expect that. That's very interesting. So then what are the next steps? I guess, what can we do as citizens? I guess obviously it starts with just getting the word out there. What else did you learn about this? I mean, they want the land. That's obvious, right?
Hmm.
And I know that, it used to be that we used to call things conspiracies, but man, today the things that we used to call conspiracies are, you know, tomorrow's news. What can we do to actually um, get the river taken care of? What are some steps do you see? What are some things we can do as a local, you know?
Yeah. So I think one of the first things is people do need to understand what the Cascadia Innovation Corridor is, because then that helps them see the bigger picture about maybe why our local government would be looking at the other way when people are being flooded. But then moving forward into the big dangerous D word, or the dirty D word, dredging, why has it been shut down, and then how do we move it forward? So I've been doing a ton of research on it because frankly I'm tired of seeing our neighbors flooded out, and I'm tired of seeing us all scrambling to dump money into something that is not actually creating any solutions. And people are tired of it. There is so much more than just the financial loss. There is major psychological implications when you destroy people's homes and their livelihoods and everything that their family has spent generations building. So, as I started to look more into dredging, I learned that there are a number of rivers in the United States that are dredged. It's a regular part of their maintenance program. They're not afraid of using the word dredging. In fact, if you look up how is dredging supportive of salmon habitat, you'll be surprised to see how much information is out there that actually shows that dredging supports stronger salmon habitat. So as I started looking into that, I was so intrigued because that's the number one reason I've been told why we don't dredge, because it'll disrupt the salmon.
Right.
That
Right.
is why we can't tube anymore on the Nooksack River in the summer. We can walk through it to disturb them because they can't make people not do that. But God forbid your child who needs a floaty to keep from drowning is floating down the river over some salmon eggs. It's ridiculous what we've done. It's the insanity of the things that we have justified in the name of protecting salmon with no logic or reason. Reminds me a bit of COVID, if you think about it. But the the salmon habitat would be much stronger if we had the river dredged to where the channels were clear and deeper and cooler for the salmon to actually get up into those
Right.
creeks and those little areas, those
Right.
estuaries where they need to spawn. And yet we've been told that that's not that it's the opposite of what happens for salmon when we do anything with the river. So not only are we actually making it harder for the salmon to get upriver, but we've also created a situation where when you've got sediment building up in different areas, instead of the river running the way it's supposed to down that deep channel, it starts to bulge out. And because it starts getting that pressure of the water backing up, and it starts to bulge out and create actually these basically trails off the main river, it's going to start to put pressure where the water is going to go where we never intended it to go.
Well, water's going to find a way. It's interesting. I've been in water mitigation for quite a few years, and trying to find out leaks and what happened, how the water damages occurred, whatever. Water will always find the path of least resistance. I mean, it's just simple. And you know, jumping back a second, real quick, when you said with the whole thing with the salmon, I have not met anybody yet who sincerely believes, at least in my circle of people that I talk to, that sincerely believes that we're protecting the salmon. It's not about that. It has nothing to do. That's just a straw man argument. That's what they put up there, because I think anybody with common sense knows you have more area for the salmon to
Cooler
go.
water is going to support
Right.
salmon population.
That's just common sense. So I'm seeing this as we're talking, tying into your whole conspiracy, if I can call it that, because let's use global warming. It's the salmon, it's the environment. Let's use all these catchphrases and dog whistles that a certain political side believes in, and that way we'll be able to control the narrative and just shut up because you guys don't know what you're talking about yet. And then every couple of years, here we are, a few years, there's flooding. And I remember as a kid, we had floods, but it was rare. I remember maybe once or twice Everson, it flooded, it got some water, but not like it does now. And Well, what's the difference? We were dredging. It was a regular process. And so it just goes right along with what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah.
and the same people that say that they're protecting the tribes by not allowing the dredging are the same people that are more than willing to trap tribal members from being able to escape a flood, especially
Oh, yeah, right.
those who
Right.
are less mobile. And I can't help but think about that. They say that they're protecting the tribes, but they're absolutely leaving them vulnerable when there's a flood. Why? Do they really care? Do they really care about the safety of the people? I don't think so.
Doesn't sound like it, especially if you're a corporation like what you're saying.
Yeah.
I need to do a poll. I need to throw that up on Facebook and see and say, does anyone actually believe that the reason we don't dredge the river is because of protecting salmon? I can't imagine you get anybody that's going to go, oh, yeah, that's what it's about. It's
Well,
just
and on that note, so you've got different rivers in the United States that dredge regularly to maintain the flow of their river. These are not areas that don't rely heavily on fishing. I mean, they absolutely do. Any community around any river, especially when you've got the river and the ocean coming together, huge fishing populations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're native or not, there's huge communities that rely on that fishing. So why are we so afraid of dredging when there's other places in the United States that are doing it and they're supporting their fish population? And then you have to ask, if they are, then how are they doing it? Well, one of the ways they do it is by you dredge it in sections. You don't just go in there and plow through. This isn't like
Sure.
some operation where some sloppy person's coming in and just going
Right.
through and tearing stuff out and creating more problems than it's worth, all of that, right? You do it systematically. You have engineers go in there. You have them understand when is the best time to dredge. How much can you dredge at a time? Our current situation in Whatcom County is many of our bridges were not built for that river to be maintained. So we wouldn't be able to go in there and just run dredging machines that just go through and they just pull up 20, 30 feet through the river all the way up. It doesn't work like that. And when you talk to the old timers that have dredged the river before or dredged other rivers, they have a very clear plan of how you dredge it, when you can dredge it, the phases that it would take to dredge it and the time it would take, starting at the south at that base of the river that comes into the ocean and getting the mouth of that cleaned up first. The moment you do that, it relieves Ferndale from flooding. Then you go on to phase 2. You set it up between bridges. So you're not coming in with one dredging machine and just plowing it through. You actually build different dredging machines depending on what you need, depending on the vulnerability of the area, depending on how far down you're actually trying to dredge, etc. So, I mean, we have a port right now that's just sitting there empty. We're losing probably billions of dollars at this point because all of the stuff that could be coming through the Bellingham Bays port instead goes to Canada and to Oregon. So we have this massive money loss. Why? Because of dredging. We can't possibly, dredge the port and have it cleaned out so where major ships can come and go, major operations and the economy would boom. That's just the port. But then you talk about the river, the fish. If we were to actually do this in a proper way with the people that are very experienced, they know exactly what they're doing. They can all come together. And I can tell you right now, last weekend I was on KGMI and I talked about the dredging. People started calling me left and right. People that have spent their whole lives dredging that were so excited to hear that I would say dredging on the radio because they are so fed up with watching everybody flooding and everyone pretending like it's a big mystery and that they don't know how to solve it. It's hogwash.
Mm-hmm. It's how much of this too, and I'm curious, genuinely, how much of this is political or is it more money driven?
It's hard to separate the two.
Mm,
I would say it's absolutely political,
yeah.
but there's money in that.
Because you mentioned there's rivers that in different regions that dredge. What's the different political climate there? Is it like more of a red state versus more of a blue state? I mean, I would imagine it's more of a. I mean, when Washington, again, I call it the big pink elephant in the room. nobody, well, let's not bring politics into it. Well, everything's political at some point. I'm sorry, but politics touch everything. And when Washington was more red, what do you know? We seemingly dredged. And as Washington became more blue, now we're protecting everything. Now we got to worship Mother Earth, and that's the God we worship. But that seems to be what's happened. And for the last, like 30 years for sure, it's been heavily left-leaning government rule. And you see all these things start to change, and the dredging stopped for whatever reason. You want to, whether it's fish, money, whatever, it's happening. And you can't help but wonder, when are people going to see that, or are people going to see that?
Yeah, and I think that, well, the political side, yes, there is a political motivation, and Washington has very extreme environmental protections, or
Sure.
that's the stamp they put on it.
Hmm.
Um, but as a conservative, right wing environmentalist, I don't think that us flooding the river over and
Right.
over does anything for the salmon population other than reduce it. Because anybody that had salmon floating in their yard or across their driveway will tell you flooding doesn't help the salmon population.
It's funny you mentioned right wing environmentalist. That is so true. My landlord, he's a conservative guy. He's a former Marine, and he is a true conservative. He doesn't kill anything unless he eats it. He doesn't waste anything. He recycles. This is a guy you would call a Republican or whatever. He does everything that the left help, recycling, all that. He does all of that. In fact, it's the conservatives that truly conserve. I think the left has used it as a more of a weapon, more of a political weapon than anything. And you get conservatives that agree, well, yeah, I want to preserve the environment. We just don't want to build high rises everywhere. We don't. And I think there's that misnomer, and there's that confusion that, well, conservatives are the party that they just want to tear everything up and build casinos and whatever. And it's like it's the opposite. No, we do want to preserve, but at what cost and how? Why are we doing it? Which you said their side after this summit that you went to appears to be that there's some monetary gain behind this.
And I can't tell you that it was all left-leaning people there.
Sure,
I
right.
mean,
Yeah,
there are people from all walks of life right on both sides that money is money to them.
exactly.
And so I don't think that side is
It's
political,
not
but
a
I
left or
do
right
think
issue.
I do think that the narrative about why we're allowing the river to flood over and
Okay.
over is used by the left, or they're able to maintain some of this by those politically correct motivations where they feel good, they're protecting the environment. Whether they really are or not is beside the point. It's that they say that they are.
Well, that's it. We have to feel good about it. And that's what, if it feels good, let's do it, right? And that's, yeah, again, that's the problem, is we need to step back and look at it and go, okay, what's actually happening here? And I mean, it's very interesting you brought this whole summit up. I was unaware of it. I mean, this is the first time I've heard of it.
So here's another aspect in regards to the concept of environmental protection and how it might be serving certain people, depending on it doesn't matter which side they lean on. But I got a very interesting phone call the other day that somebody in Whatcom County that has been long time involved in local government has been using the restrictions on these wetlands in regards to properties to basically flip property by buying property that's of low value because it's not buildable because of the wetland restrictions, turning around and getting those wetland restrictions removed so that they can flip these properties at a much higher value. Now, would you call that somebody an environmentalist or somebody that is making money off of these environmental protection concepts?
That's an opportunist. Not an environmentalist, that's an opportunist.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think that people of Whatcom County deserve to know these types of
Mhm.
shenanigans that are going on. I think our government across the board, but our local government is riddled with fraud, gerrymandering, all these different
Yeah.
types of ways that they are pulling the wool over Whatcom County's eyes and keeping us in the dark while they continue to profit off of our loss, whether it's flood loss, whether it's taxes, the property taxes that are going through the roof, which affect renters, by the way.
Well, that
You
is for
know,
sure.
we've seen that. So,
Absolutely. Just real quick, you said something that struck me that this person would go in, buy the land, get the restrictions removed. How do you do that?
great question. And it probably took more than one person agreeing to that or approving it, I would think. So somebody is doing it and someone else is looking the other way. And I'm sure it's a
Mm.
story that's going to be aired out here real soon with names and faces, but just know that that type of thing is happening here in our county.
Oh, I
And people are
don't
tired
doubt
of
it.
seeing it happen. And
Yeah.
there are whistleblowers that are starting to come out, and we are going to see a major unveiling, I think, of some of the issues about why Whatcom County has been financially flailing, especially in the last 5 years when they got all that COVID money. They built out these programs to make a bunch of money and expected the taxpayers to pay for it. And then the ARPA funds, the COVID funds stopped coming in, but we're still paying for it. So it's just one of the many issues that we have going on. But when it comes to the flooding, we need to face it. We need to get people on board with how do we move through it and get everybody working together to get that river flowing properly again.
Well, and that's why I'm doing this, kind of call it a series, if you will, of just sitting down with people who are sort of involved in this. Um, because I heard Ashley Buttonshone had Alicia Rule on KGMI Morning Live a couple weeks ago, and there's two people from opposite sides of the fence coming together, agreeing that yeah, we need to do something. We need awareness. And I think that the conversation has been forced, obviously, by this last round of flooding. There's that old saying, unfortunately, it hasn't gotten bad enough. I don't know. Hopefully, it's gotten bad enough now that people are going to say, okay, this, because generally, you know how it is with us humans. I mean, can you tell me what the big thing that happened 2 weeks ago was in the news? Was it a school shooting or whatever it was? It's the news cycle happens so fast that we're on to the next thing. And unless people like you, who represent the people, guys like me who are, I'm just an inquisitive person. I like to ask questions. Unless we continue to keep this conversation alive, same thing's going to happen as it did, 4 years ago? 4 years ago, same thing. We need to dredge. This is terrible. We got to do something. And then, it just went away. So that's why I want to do this, get this out there. And everybody's busy. Everybody has lives. They have families, and this stuff can be overwhelming. But I think the message would be just take 5 minutes out of your day to pay attention long enough to form an opinion. Um, Maybe listen to this podcast. Maybe listen to another. Just kind of listen. If you don't have the time, I guess my message would be, then take 5 minutes to listen to us who do take the time and hear what we have to say. And which is exactly one of the reasons I have you on here. So
Well, I think the other part of that is not only, educating yourself on maybe the underlying issues about why it's going on, but then making sure that our public officials are aware where people stand on this, that they're not going to allow our neighbors to continue to get flooded, that we are going to do something. We would like the support of our local government to actually
mhm.
use money that we pay them to manage this. But it's going to come a point where the people of Whatcom County aren't going to allow their houses, their families to be flooded over and over, and they're going to take that power back into their own hands and they're going to do whatever needs to be done. So if the government does care about any sort of environmental concerns or even just maintaining power over how it's mitigated, they better start coming to the table with solutions that actually make a difference because the people of Whatcom County are done.
Mm.
They are done sitting around waiting for someone else to fix this because they are tired of being flooded out. And that's the difference why I think that has happened this time with this flood than the last one. The last time, people actually thought that after that flood and the amount of money that came in and the awareness across the United States of, oh, this area is flooded, we need to support them on a federal level, they thought there was going to be some changes. Now they know full well that unless they do something, there aren't going to be any changes. And I think people are done. They're done waiting. That's what I'm seeing happen anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Lyle Sorensen, who's also very knowledgeable on this, mentioned something to me about what is it, the Nooksack River Coalition or the Nooksack? There's an outfit that of people that is involved in this. Like apparently, they're supposed to be the ones that are looking after maintaining the river and that kind of thing. And I guess according to him, they've done nothing, literally, since the last time. I can't remember what it's called. It's the Nooksack River something. It's dropping my brain right now, but anyway, it's an organization that's here in Whatcom County that's involved in making sure that that's looked after. And again, here we are 4 years later in another flood. But
well, to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I don't know who runs that or who doesn't, but I will tell you,
know what I'm talking about, though, right?
That I've heard of it, but I really don't know who manages it. Is it a government entity? Is it just everyday grassroots people? I don't know. I will tell you, people are very jaded in this county because when we have brought forward concerns and tried to get action taken, the government has just acted like their hands were tied and done nothing. So in 2021, when it got flooded, Be Brave started collecting signatures. We went to the county and we said, here's all these people, thousands and thousands of people that want to see something done with the river so we don't see this flooding happen again. And it just got completely ignored. And so sometimes people, they come together and they try to organize and they try to figure it out, but then they get stuck or stonewalled and they don't know where to move forward on that. And I guess that's the reason I'm having this conversation with you is because I can tell you, people are coming out of the woodwork right now that are actually going to make change happen. They're going to take action. These are people that are well experienced on how to actually clean up that river. And they are tired of watching people get flooded. So they are coming to me and saying, how do we organize? And I'm saying, the organization is going to happen. We would love to get the government to actually sit down at the table with us and make a plan that's going to work for everybody. But something's going to happen and they better get on it or they're going to be left out and ignored because the only power that the government has is the power we give them.
Yeah, let's get some of them on the show at some point too. I mean, anybody that this is what I want to do is I want to, and again, I'm not coming at this from a side per se. I'm just coming at it as, okay, I want to hear who has ideas on how to fix this.
Yeah. And ask people in the tribe. Not everybody agrees in the tribe on whether that this should be done or not.
Right.
There are certain people in the tribe that are probably getting paid money by certain people to go along and get along. But then there are other people that get trapped every single time there's a flood that might have a different perspective on what we're not doing. You know what I mean?
Speaking of that, Misty, what is being done? Anything?
That's a great question. I think that we're dumping a bunch of money into helping people that have been flooded. But as far as how to stop it from happening again, I don't see anything happening.
Are we getting any help from the government yet, from the state government yet? Or like, is there anything? Like last time I remember...
They're probably dumping money into, committees to spend the next 5 years talking about
what to do.
Yeah.
I think that happened last time. I mean, I remember, it took forever for then Governor Inslee to make his, cameo in Sumas and then pop out of there. I mean, it was forever before anything. I don't even know. Did anything even happen? I mean, I saw people after that though, building their houses up. You see look everywhere in Everson. It's you see houses that are now, a good 6 feet higher, at least than they were. Because these people are invested there. They're like, look, we can't just move. So we're going to have to figure out how to mitigate this somehow. But not everybody has the money to do that. I mean, some of them are rentals, and there's, what landlord's going to do that? I mean, sorry, I don't mean to cap on landlords, but there's a lot of there's a lot of landlords out there just like, "Psh,
It's
no,
not cost effective.
it's not cost
It
effective."
just
Right.
isn't, right?
Right.
I
And,
mean,
yeah. And so you have this situation. And then what do you say to the people like, well, I mean, you know, shouldn't build there, I mean, and I'm not talking about the houses that have been there, but this like newer developments and things. It's like, I mean, until the river's dredged, you're rolling the dice.
well, that's a great point. And oddly, Sat Paul said at the City Club, he mocked people that had been flooded in 2021, saying, "Why do you build by the river? And then you're surprised when the river comes and takes your house." That perspective is really interesting coming from a man who is involved in a project who stands to profit
Mm,
off of that area getting flooded to where they can put in a new rail system. So, who's to blame here? Is it because I have a house next to a river? Look around. Look at the United States. Look at how many rivers there are. Look at how many communities are built up right next to rivers. And somehow they manage those rivers where those communities aren't flooded over and over. So why here? What is the financial gain for allowing our community to flood over and over? That's
mm.
not normal. We think it's normal here because we're so used to being blindsided by the this facade of environmental protection and all this stuff. It's not normal. Flooding over and over is not normal. The government doing nothing to stop it, that's not normal. Just because we live next to a river, it's not normal to have it get flooded every couple years and wipe out
Right.
communities.
Yeah, the 100-year flood thing. I mean, that's what you pay. That's what you get insurance for. But there's places like the Riverwalk. It's a new development down there in the backside of Linden. That the lower levels, I mean, the developers were told, what to do. This is what you got to do, and you guys will be fine. There's, they did everything that they were told to do, and of course, a lot of us we're looking at it going, I don't know. I think that's still going to flood because if you don't dredge the river, we saw that there's water there, and eventually it's probably going to get higher because as the river fills up, flooding is going to get worse. And I'm not blaming the developers. I'm just saying they did what they were told, and here it is. It happened again. So then you get into this question of, well, who's to blame? Is it the developers because they should have known, or is it mismanagement of the river because people have a right to live by it? There's that dynamics, that argument of who really is to blame here. As a Christian man, I believe that we are supposed to be stewards of the land. And if that means stewarding the river, I mean, there's two ways to steward it. You let it do what it wants, and then it's going to wipe everything out eventually, every 200 years or something. I don't know. Or, you actually maintain it so that people have places to live. It was presented to me by a friend of mine who's a realtor. He says, look, we're running out of places to live. And if we have the technology and the means to safely and environmentally safely, maintain and create a safe environment to where you can dredge the river and still live by it, why would we not do that? I mean, I have to imagine that you could be able to say to like some of these gravel companies like Cowden or Honkoop, tell you what, you guys go in there on your own dime and you follow the engineer's specs, do the thing. You get to keep, and sell the gravel, use it for your profit or whatever. I mean, there's got to be a way that these guys, they're gonna profit from it. We're gonna profit from it. Everybody is gonna profit from it. I have to imagine there's a way for that to happen,
Yep.
and it's just we're just sitting on it.
Yeah. So some of the conversations that are being had around this and how do we get everybody on board is exactly that. How do you decide and maybe divvy up who makes the profit off of the gravel removal, the sand removal, the sediment removal? Some of it will be very mineral rich that could be used for farming.
Yeah.
So some of the very basic conversations happening right now that make perfect sense to me is getting the tribes involved, putting something on paper that says each tribe gets a certain percentage of what is pulled, whether it be road supply stuff, whether it be the actual money from it, so that they can strengthen their tribes. The companies that are pulling the gravel would make a cut from it. It would actually strengthen Whatcom County
Yeah.
across the board.
That's what I'm saying is there's got to be a
And
way
people are willing
everybody-
to compromise on that. They're absolutely, the gravel companies are willing to compromise, and they're willing to say, yeah, we'll get in there right now. We'll do it right this
Absolutely.
second. Help us get the permits. Help us
Yeah.
figure out something on paper so that the tribes are happy, so that, Department of Ecology can be patted on the head or whatever, right? It's like there are solutions. And the fact that it's not being done, it's because somebody's making money off of not creating solutions. But there are people in this county that want solutions. They are working really hard to figure out, how do we come together? How do we make it happen? Who can get the ball rolling?
Let's walk through this conspiracy. These corporations, hypothetically, are going to come in. They're going to allow everyone to flood. So people are like, screw this, we're out of here. The land devalues. They come in, they go, we'll buy it up cheap. Then what? Then they're going to dredge the river? Because they're going to have to stop the river. They're not going to be able to build either.
That's a
if
great
the river
question.
keeps flooding. So at some point, they're going to have to do exactly what we're talking about.
It's a great point.
That's interesting. So, if we can find a way to just go ahead and do that now, everybody profits. The tribes profit, the gravel companies profit, the builders, realtors, everybody.
The salmon would thrive.
The salmon? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a bullshit argument. The whole salmon, it's the environment. No, the river's filling up.
Well, and like I said, people that think that my point of view is conspiratorial or it's hogwash coming from no understanding, look it up yourself. How does dredging support salmon populations? Look it up. You will see salmon organizations that are all about protecting salmon talking about the benefits of dredging. And they don't talk about the benefits of what did you say the other term?
Sediment
removal. No, they're not dancing around the term dredging. Yeah. They say dredging. Yeah. It's not a big deal.
Well, potato. I personally don't care what term you put on it. The fact is sediment removal. We got to get it out of there. And again, the whole thing. Well, it's the sand. I'm starting to see that is the biggest BS argument. It's a total straw man argument. It's completely. I don't think anybody really believes that. I don't. I haven't heard anybody that's like, well, and
I think there are people that believe it, but it's people that are just told what to believe. And so,
right.
If you need me to cover my face and walk 6 feet apart and hold my breath, for my health, when oxygen is life. I mean, there are people that will believe what they're told, even if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, where's the evidence though? Like, is there studies that, dredging the river is terrible for salmon? Where's those studies? I mean, do they exist? I mean, I guess you can probably make one up, but it seems to be the other way around, that in fact they flourish.
Did you ever see the video that they showed at the Whatcom County Council to promote and prove why we shouldn't float the river anymore?
No.
If you want to know what kind of studies would be put out, you should really watch the video.
Okay.
It's pretty comical. And they said it's clear that the salmon are terrified of the humans, and
You're joking.
I wish I was. I really do.
You are joking.
I will find it and send it to you. It hurts.
Yeah,
I'll dumb.
I'll cut it into this video.
It's so ridiculous. And it's like, those are the kind of studies being done to prove that the salmon are safer. It hurts.
In the meantime, we're very concerned about the additional risk posed by high levels of recreation in the South Fork. We know from published studies, which I won't go into in this short time I have, but we know from these published studies that rafting and other forms of recreation can stress Chinook and increase the risk of pre-spawn mortality. In fact, we identified recreation as a limiting factor in to Chinook in our 2005 Nooksack Salmon Recovery Plan. And we specifically called out summer recreational use of the lower South Fork, especially inner tubing. Salmon stop eating once they enter the river, and they have limited energy reserves to complete their life cycle and fight infection. Stress is cumulative. The greater the stress as they move upstream to spawn, the higher the risk of pre-spawn mortality. This is a recent underwater video from the South Fork Nooksack. This shows Chinook holding in a pool formed by a logjam we've constructed. You can see how the fish startle and scatter when a swimmer floats overhead. This startling increases stress and avoidance. That avoidance behavior you see uses up limited energy reserves.
Ask Acme, because they were involved, watch the whole Acme community when this went down, knowing it was going to completely gut Acme's financial stability in the summertime. The videos that were used to promote cutting off the tubing was asinine. It was ridiculous.
Wow. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, no words for that. There's no real studies done. It's smoke and mirrors, and wow.
I really appreciate this conversation.
Well,
I think it's super important, that the people of Whatcom County deserve transparency, they deserve accountability, and they deserve at least a small amount of respect for what they bring to this community. And frankly, anybody in government right now should be very mindful about how they're tiptoeing around this conversation, because the people of Whatcom County deserve the truth, and that river should be flowing properly. What's happening right now is not acceptable.
I mean, if I was Sat Paul, I would be on this like peppers and hot sauce, man. I would be like, this is top of my list of things to be working on. I mean, if you want a good at least half of Whatcom County going, dude, you're, I mean, gosh, well, I can't imagine this not being the highest priority right now. I mean, it's a huge segment of northern Whatcom County
and we're not past the flood season either. It could happen again.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. We know we haven't even started winter yet.
Well, we're in a warm.
It's weird, right?
Warm winter too.
So imagine February, March.
Yeah.
We could end up with.
We could get spring flooding.
Yeah.
Especially if we get that snow melt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I just saw somebody floated a picture on Facebook the other day about pardon the pun. I forget what another road backside of Linden there was all flooded, and the field was flooded just of this last system that came through a couple weeks ago.
Well, the Ferndale Bridge was almost flooded just this last week or whatever. And then really? the one go up Meridian near Linden there, it was right at the breach point.
Well, there's that poor guy. I don't know who the property owner is, but right there on the other side of the bridge on the guide, I mean, that gets devastated every time.
Yep.
I don't even know how they still live there, but
yep.
God bless you. I mean, that place has to be, just dried out. I mean, the mud. Oh, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they still live there, but they're troopers. So I think the biggest thing is, this conversation needs to stay alive. Instead of just, like last time, it was a big deal until it wasn't. Everybody settles down, goes back to life. Summer comes around, the clouds lift, and everybody's like, yeah, I mean, and look, who wants to sit here and think about this all the time? We want to get on with our lives. But unfortunately, like a lot of things in life right now, we don't have the luxury to just ignore it. Because, it starts out, well, that's over there, not here, right? That happened to them, not us. Or, I'm not really going to worry about it. Or that thing, well, really it's not my concern yet. Well, eventually it's going to be at your door, and then it's going to be in your house, literally. And that's what we're dealing with this flooding situation is,
And part of the reason I speak up is because my house hasn't been flooded from these floods. I do have an ongoing water issue in my home. So it is year round something I think about. And then when I have, neighbors and friends that have flooded, I don't forget that they have now put more money into trying to fix their home to where their kids can stay there, or they end up having to move and they lose a ton of money just trying to figure out how to go on to that next step, you know? So for me, it doesn't ever go away. It's right in my face. And it's like, I have to speak up for these people that are just so devastated. They don't have the fight in them to go to county council and express their concerns.
Well, and that's not a Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal issue.
Yeah.
This is an everyone issue.
Absolutely.
This is affecting everyone.
Yeah. And how about the renters? You know, you talking about the insurance, it's like, sure, insurance is great for homeowners if you had the proper insurance and if the insurance covers flooding, but that's if you're lucky, right? What if you're a renter? You eat that in the shorts. What if you're a renter that has a hard time? I don't know about you, but not everybody keeps all their paperwork in a row and they can prove all these different things when it comes to the renters. And so even when it comes to some of the support that we have for people that have been flooded, they have to prove that they qualify. Well, if you're in a disaster and you're already overwhelmed with the fact that you have no idea where you're going to sleep at night, maybe you've got a young baby or maybe several young babies and you don't even know where you're going to sleep at night, are you going to try to figure out where to find your paperwork to go prove to this nonprofit organization that you are in fact one of the people that were flooded so that you can get those types of services and hope that eventually it comes through, or hopefully eventually FEMA drops you a $500 check? I mean, it's embarrassing, and we have to fight for these people that don't have it in them to fight because they are just trying to get back on their feet.
Well, and that was my broader point is it's so exhausting.
Totally.
That, we appreciate, especially people like you who have made it, a priority to be a leader in that movement, in the movement of bringing awareness and, being that voice that says, hey, hold on a second. No, this is not, we're not just going to go back to status quo. I'm going to start, if that's the case, then we're going to start getting louder. And maybe that's what we have to do. And I think it's getting louder. I think it's getting louder, man. People, this last time around,
Well, I hope
the
the
volume's
noise,
raising.
yeah, and I hope that noise creates action.
Right. But and the question is what does that look like? But it starts with having the conversation and being loud enough that our representatives like Sat Paul, and those on the Whatcom County Council say, hey, we do care about you. We see it. Yeah, we need to do something about this. And the something we need to do about it is not just talk about it more, but actually, come with some ideas, come with some stats, come with some, again, like you mentioned earlier, sit down with the gravel companies. I bet they're just wringing their hands going, hey, we got some ideas. We got the stuff. We got the gear. We got the means. We can make it happen. We'll work with the engineers. We'll work with whoever. Let's just get going. Let's start a plan. Half of it they just do on their own dime. I'm sure be willing to set up to do it just to benefit the results of gleaning the gravel, the minerals.
And they live here too. Their homes are getting flooded too, right? This is not a separation of that. And I'm happy to hear that Alicia Roll is talking about doing something. She's one of the few legislators that I think that are on the state level that are more, quote, left leaning, that are listening to the people. Yeah. And so there is some hope there. I would love to see that again, bring fruit, bring action, bring some sort of accountability and transparency so that the people of Whatcom County can really start to trust they're not going to continue to get flooded out. And that requires us doing something.
Yeah. So, Misty, if you could wave a magic wand, what are, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 points or points of action? How would you, what would be the first step? Where do we start? Let's say, okay, Misty, let's make this happen. What would you do first?
Well, first I would bring all the people to the table that have that experience, that are itching to get started, get government officials to come to the table on the local level and the state level, anybody willing to actually bring this project forward, get the tribes involved, not just the leadership of the tribe, but the people that are being heavily impacted by the flooding as well, or maybe fishers that are seeing the loss of salmon, and get them all at the table together and really work out an effective plan on how do we get started. and then creating, even if we get stage like a phase 1 and a phase 2 on how do we start clearing some of that sediment out of the south end of the river so that we can get that flow happening, so that if we do flood again, or if there's more water again this year, or especially for spring, that we don't see those floods. If we could get some action happening, even on just that, the mouth of the river, it would make a difference. It would help bring those water levels down, even just enough to stop Ferndale from flooding or to bring other levels down. Once you do those different phases, the phase 1 and phase 2, the river is going to actually start working with us and helping clear some of that sediment out too. So, and again, going back to people that have experience, that understand the different types of dredgers, which I've been learning more about, there's a bunch of different options.
Right.
There's a couple that don't make sense at all for the Nooksack. One of them in particular, it shoots out water pressure, and it can really dishevel a lot of your sediment and stuff. It's not really as effective
Seems
as
more disruptive.
Yeah, it seems more disruptive. But the ones that are actually suctioning
Right.
it out, there's also, we have areas all along the river. And again, you talk to Cowden, you talk to these other people that have done this before. We already have places that have been staged on the river where they once dredged,
Yeah.
where they once pulled material. And there's no reason we can't utilize what we already have going for us, and making sure that we at least start that project. And then as we go, you check to see, is this working? How is it working? You make sure that you're not disrupting the salmon eggs. And again, rivers across the United States that dredge regularly, they're very aware of those populations of fish that they don't want to disrupt because they don't want to impact their fishing communities. So none of these are new concepts. We need to get everybody at the table that has that experience locally and maybe otherwise, maybe pulling people from the Southwest and pulling people from different areas like New Orleans, like Texas, and say, hey, come give us some advice on how we get our river flowing again. How do we do it in a way that's not going to impact our fish negatively, and make sure that financially we're doing it in a way that is going to keep this project maintained for many years to come. And what I've been being told by people that have dredged regularly, the initial project is going to take several years to get all the way through where it needs to. But then after that, dredging usually happens every 10 or 20 years. This isn't something that comes in every single year and they're disrupting. It happens every 10 or 20 years because that sediment starts to build up and then you deal with it. Now, we've been ignoring it for so long. We're going to have to do a little bit more to start. But over time, you have it set up where it's going to pay for itself. And hopefully you strengthen those communities around it that are really impacted negatively by it. So there's no reason we can't take some of that money and put it back into actually healing Sumas and Nooksack and those areas that were heavily hit.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a good place to start to me. And again, I mean, this isn't or shouldn't be in any way a political issue. It should be a common sense issue, and it's environmental. It's the citizens involved. It's just coming together under common sense. It sounds like to me is what you're saying. And is there anything else you can think of that you wanted to mention?
I'm just thankful for these conversations. I think it's super important. And I think that the more people willing to have them, even though they are taboo, the more people can come to the table and actually bring their great minds and their experience to figure out how to create solutions that are going to really make a positive impact for everybody, and have it happen now, not 5 years down the road, not 10 years down the road, not after our same neighbors have gotten flooded out 5 times. I mean, the psychological impact of going through something devastating like that, it's huge. And, people get depressed. They get PTSD. I had a friend that was in New Orleans when it flooded. And I mean, she had PTSD for years, in many different ways. It heavily impacted her. We need to be thinking about that. We need to be thinking about the children that get caught up in this, and the people that are dependent on the government to get them out of a bad situation like that. We need to be making sure that we're not putting them in a situation where we're knowingly leaving them destitute. So,
well, it's 2026. I mean, we have the technology.
Absolutely.
It exists.
Absolutely.
And it's just, do we have the will? And I hate to say it, but hopefully this time around it was bad enough that enough people are gonna this isn't just gonna go away like last time. That we're gonna keep pushing through and demand that our representatives represent us. Well, Misty, um, thanks for coming. I learned some things today, and you know, what's in the future for you? What are some things that you're anything coming up or anything?
Well, I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for this conversation, but also for the people that have been reaching out to me lately regarding this issue. There are so many people that are just really smart, really, really smart folks that have the experience needed. But just by getting a hold of me and thanking me for having the conversation has helped me bring people together. And it's giving me more tools to communicate about it. It's also giving me more insight on that there are solutions available. So I'm super thankful for the people that are stepping up and saying, hey, how can I help? I know a little bit about this. How can I do something about it? Those are going to be the people that are going to get this ball moving forward. So that's where my focus is right now. Actually, there's a lot going on with the party. There's a lot going on with our county with the ever increasing taxes. But if we could do anything for Whatcom County, getting that river flowing properly would be the number one. And I am happy to carry that torch forward.
And then how can people help? What do you suggest? The average mom and pop that has a dog in the hunt in this, what do you suggest they do?
I think they need to educate themselves on the Cascadia Innovation Corridor. I think that they need to be reaching out to their local officials, especially Whatcom County Council, who absolutely takes tax dollars from them to pay for projects like this. And they need to be holding their government officials accountable. And then anytime there's conversations like this happening, especially out in the public, show up, give their input. You know, if they have concerns about the lack of action, they need to say something, because I can be a squeaky wheel, but when you've got hundreds of people or even several thousands of people with those same issues, it's going to make a much bigger impact on those in charge to do something versus having just a couple people come into the council, express our concerns. It's easier to be ignored. It's easier for the government officials to ignore those people when it's only a couple. But when it's people every 2 weeks knocking on their door saying, hey, we're still getting flooded, we still want action, that is what's going to get the ball moving forward.
And how can people get a hold of you if they need to, or if you want them to? Is there a way, an email or a place that...
Yeah, so I have 2 different emails. If they want to reach out to me through the party, it's chair@whatcomgop.com. If they want to reach out to me through my Be Brave group, which is also very active in moving this ball forward, it's Be Brave WA, like Washington, at protonmail.com. And both of those organizations, I am working heavily to create positive change here locally in Whatcom County. And some of that is by bringing in some state folks that are plugged into the state level to make change here locally. But my focus is local, so through those 2.
Misty Flowers, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate your willingness to do this, and the stamina to stay in there and represent the people.
It's going to take us all
Yeah.
to make a change. It really is. So thanks for having the conversation.
Thanks again, and there you have it, folks. You can get a hold of Misty and through her emails, and this is one of those things that we're just going to have to. We can't let this go this time. And I know it's tiring, but you got Misty here fighting for us, and there is others as well. I'm going to have some future interviews on that. So, stay strong and keep plugging ahead and don't give up. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, this is the Urban Outcast. We'll see you soon.